Welcome to Soundbreaker. On today's episode, we're talking to Liam James Ward, who is the co-founder and CEO of Something Something. Liam, pleasure to have you on the show. And for our listeners who might not be familiar with you, could you please introduce yourself? And before we dive into it,
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on, Bob, and thanks to
my
everyone who's
pleasure.
listening. Yeah, I'm Liam James Ward. I'm the CEO, co-founder of Something Something. Thanks for letting me intro a little bit, just because I know Something Something as a name doesn't give too much away as to what
I
we
love it.
do.
Actually, I love it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I think of all the things I've done in my career, it's the one thing that has maybe got the most compliments. So nice to know that you're on the list of people who enjoy it. But
Absolutely.
I mean, look, the reason we're called Something Something was because when we started about 3 years ago, social was very far down the list of priorities, and content as a whole was very far down the list of priorities. The way you always look at it, right, is in a label planning meeting, in what order do the departments talk? And socials was always basically as everyone was walking outside the door. So
Yeah.
we kind of always put that on its head and realized we were a bit of an afterthought at the time. And yeah, we started about 3 years ago trying to take social a little bit more seriously, but still trying to inject the fun in it. We manage socials, we produce content, and we also are kind of one of the most forefront fan account management companies in the world as well. We work with all sorts of artists, big, small, dance music, rock music, pop music, all of it. So yeah, that's why it's a bit hard to put one label on it.
I like it. It kind of keeps you curious. Like, what is this all about? What is Something Something is about? Um,
Thanks, man. We'll take that.
Absolutely. Liam, what really got you started in your early age? Like, say, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to get involved in the music business. I want to be part of it. I want to contribute. I want to help. What started this whole, I should say, journey at a younger age? What was the motivational point, the breaking point? Say, that's what I want.
Yeah, man. I mean, how truthful to be here. I mean, I think the real truth of the matter is when I was about probably 11 or 12, I fancied a girl in school. She was a bit of an emo. I didn't know much about music at the time and probably forced myself into an education of emo music to
Fancy,
impress
very
her.
proper. I like that word. Not many
Yeah,
people use
yeah.
it these days.
Yeah, I heard. And,
Yeah.
I went down a route of My Chemical Romance, Fall Out Boy, Paramore. Those were kind of all the early acts for me. And, little did I know that that fancying never quite came off, but it stuck with me. And, as soon as I got into music, it completely enveloped me. And frankly, for better or worse, it was all I gave a damn about very quickly. And, essentially, from about 13, I was working in studios, working in music stores, working in
Hmm.
venues, anything and everything just to be close to music. I say working, not getting paid, like essentially volunteering. And yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I would love to pretend that all of this has been a really calculated mission of like, this is what I want to do and these are the steps I need to take. But very akin to the name of our company, it's always been about kind of looking at what's next and just focusing on that, and what took me from there is I went and studied music production just because it was something that I thought, I can. This is sciencey enough that my mom might be proud of me to do it, but also it's close enough to music that I can essentially be unemployed while my mom's still proud. And then started club nights, and then went and interned at record labels, and then fell into work at a social media agency, and then yeah, and then started something about 3.5 years ago. So again, it's all just being I love music. I want to be close to it, and anything that can get around not getting a real job anytime soon, I'll keep doing that.
What pushed you to start something? What was what was the, how should I say, the tipping point where you said, that's what the music business missing,
Yeah.
and we need to do something. Obviously, you saw a gap there, you saw a glitch,
Hmm.
and it's like, you know what, I know how to fix it. Nobody's listening to me. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, it was that. I mean, as I've kind of already touched on, I don't have like a business background. I wasn't coming in being like, oh, there's money to be made here. It was essentially after years of working in labels, and I'd worked at other agencies, and I'd worked with artists in a variety of capacities at that stage. Post COVID, post TikTok, it really seemed as though there was this gap, as you say, and a lot of pressure was being put on artists to do the TikTok thing, but not very much support was being given to them in return. And frankly, at that stage, the agency model was becoming less and less appropriate, I guess. And you're essentially paying two, three, four, 5 grand a month to a company to deliver a to-do list of like, hey, here's a bunch of videos you need to go and make. And
Yeah.
where we really first started was this realization that if you either had to go and hire an agency who are then telling you how to do the social media, but they're telling you all these videos you need to go and brief into a videographer. Videographer doesn't understand social media. They would much
Mhm.
rather be working on a script for their short film that they're working on. They don't want to be shooting TikToks. So we were kind of one of the first teams to come through and go, you know what, like let's do this all in house. We'll come up with the ideas, we'll manage the channels, but also we'll do all the shooting, we'll do all the content creation. And now that feels really obvious. Now I think like pretty much all teams that work in our world are doing that. But at that
Mhm.
point, taking especially phone-based content, short form video, as seriously as it was, no one was really doing it at that point. So yeah, that's where it came from. And I think everything we've ever evolved into has just been through conversations with people we know at labels and talking to artists and talking to managers. And I've always had a rule: if three people tell me something's pissed them off, I'm going to go and figure out how to fix that problem. You know what I mean? So as soon as we know there's some sort of theme here, we're like, okay, something's growing and we need to figure out how we help this.
You think TikTok is still the main driving marketing component for new artists and existing artists?
I'd say so. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely showing no signs of slowing. I think that with it having become only more and more of a priority for a bunch of people, it does mean it's got noisier and therefore it can be harder than ever to cut through on that. Those
Hmm.
of us who jumped on it really early really got to benefit from cutting through
Correct.
the noise when there wasn't much.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I think YouTube Shorts, I think Instagram Reels, I think all these other platforms still have a place, but TikTok does seem to still be maybe the number one place for music discovery. That
Why is
being
that?
said, I just think that the way that their algorithm works is so good at connecting people, right? So if I am a fan of 80s music and I love video games, if there's a content creator out there that's making content related to video games and 80s music, or even a musician who makes soundtrack sounding 80s music or whatever, TikTok is so damn good at finding the consumer and finding the producer and connecting them. I think Instagram's doing better and better all the time, and we're seeing much better uplift on the likes of Reels than we ever have done before. YouTube
Hmm.
Shorts, I know, are trying to continuously develop it, but I do feel that that platform's better for speaking to the fans you already have rather than to new people necessarily. But yeah, in terms of purely discovery, I would say TikTok's probably still at the forefront. That being said, there are some great tools and great focuses: Discord, OpenStage, Laylo, all of these kind of more community driven platforms that I think are arguably as important, but they're more about engagement rather than
Yeah.
awareness and discovery, right?
Hmm. Very interesting. What do you think will be next? I mean, TikTok been, I would say, not old, but it's been around. How long would you
Mm-hmm.
say? 8 years? TikTok?
I mean, I feel
7?
like the real, yeah, it's probably about 7 years old if I was going to take a punt. Obviously,
Yeah.
musically
When they
before
took
that.
over musically. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I'd say the
Yeah.
boom really happened about, COVID time, so pretty much bang on 5 years ago now. So what's next? I mean, that's a really great shout. I think the biggest thing for me is I've already spoken about there's this weird dichotomy between awareness and discovery, which is
Hmm.
TikTok, Instagram Reels, so onwards. And then you've got community. The reason I'm talking with my hands right now is because it's that
It's
traditional
okay.
marketing funnel,
Hey.
right? And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot going on at the top. There's a lot going on at the bottom, but more needs to be done to bridge it in the middle. I think if I was going to say what's next, what's new, I think something that simultaneously helps you discover new things, discover new conversations, but also it's not so content producer speaking out to content consumers, and it's more of everybody's connected. If I'm
Mm.
being quite frank, I actually think that we lost that when Facebook fell away. I think that when Facebook became so algorithm based and it got very messy and it became very much like people just think their parents use it, I think the connectivity that it had with, Facebook events, and I could go onto a gig and see who was attending, and I could go through event calendars and scroll. I think that side of it is really the thing that's been missing from social for a little while now. The ability
Mm.
to discover new stuff while also connecting around that. And yeah, I really hope that whether it's one of the existing platforms, TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, or maybe even Facebook comes back, who knows, or whether it's a completely new platform, I really hope we can get to a world where people have the ability to grow, but also to connect and engage on with existing fans and existing friends. Does that make sense?
It does, because as we all see that stream, DSPs, the digital streaming platforms, uh, such TikTok and I'm sorry, not TikTok, Spotify and Deezer and all of these platforms that exist now. There's about over 300-400 platforms out there.
Mm-hmm.
Strong, legit one, small number. The number's been going down every year as far as monetizing, artists
Mm-hmm.
complaining. It's like we're not making enough money from our actual sales. Sales no longer physical, sales means streaming. And
Mm-hmm.
and it's harder to monetize on TikTok, but you could monetize by being on TikTok, having a lot of followers, like getting sponsorships and other things. But the monetization, I think if there's a way where I think some of the artists, the music artists, we're talking on, not a lot of content creators become their own artists also,
Mm-hmm.
uh, where there's some kind of connecting the DSPs, the digital streaming platform, with such platform like Instagram Reels, like Shorts, like
Mm-hmm.
TikTok, where kind of gives it a little bit of longevity for artists to continue monetizing on the music by streaming.
Yeah.
But because I don't know TikTok how what they pay, but they don't pay much at all. You know that. We all know that the payment on TikTok as far as, but you can use that to kind of gain outside business, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
outside performances or branding, many things you can profit and benefit from that, which is a great thing, obviously. But still, there's a big gap there. And
Agreed.
with that end, the way we consume music and open for new technology to come in and say, hey, this is the new way now. It feels
Mm-hmm.
like it's the beginning of the end of an era that we've been enjoying since 2000 2002 or 2000, when digital started to happen, if you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean, when we
Mm-hmm.
the migration came from physical to digital.
Yeah, yeah. No, it makes complete sense. I mean, I don't want to be a mouthpiece for TikTok, but at all. I'm definitely not like
No,
media
I
training for
mean,
that.
it's
But
great.
what
All of these
what a
platforms are great.
definitely, but the one thing I would say is I do think these platforms themselves realize that, and they are trying to go to lengths to monetize. I know that TikTok obviously have relationships with Spotify and Apple Music, and that ability to save straight to your library is one example. I know that obviously TikTok has partnership with, I think it's Ticketmaster, right? So you can purchase tickets for shows directly on TikTok. Obviously, there's TikTok Shop, obviously there's IG Shop, so
Big
onwards.
business.
And
Yeah.
obviously also even just the fact that this is why I think YouTube's still a really underrated thing, both in the sense that the streaming royalties are maybe a bit better, but you've got your advertising on a platform where your music lives, already, because music videos and lyric visualizers or whatever they are directly on that platform. So
Hmm.
I think whether it's through partnership, i.e., the things I mentioned before on TikTok, or whether it's these platforms trying to do more to help monetization, I think just whatever's going to make the user journey as simple as possible, that's the thing that's going to help. And it's kind of got to come from one of those two routes: partnership or new features, right?
Yes. I mean, as something is your agency,
Mm-hmm.
very hip, young, and trendy, and it deals a lot with a lot of upcoming new artists. So you're
Mm-hmm.
always in the forefront of hearing things,
Mm-hmm.
and whether they're complaining about, things a lot of artists not happy with, or things that they wish that it could change to that way. So you're always kind of getting a lot of tips and new ideas coming in
Mm-hmm.
from a lot of the creative artists that you're working with. We're all in the creative business, which is really important. Um, what's next, do you think, for something? What's on the forefront? What are you hoping to do? Let's say this year. What are you on the agenda? How do you
Yeah,
want to?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, look, there's some things that I'd love to shout about, but maybe we're a bit too early. But what I will say is you've hit the nail on the head there, Bob, and I really appreciate the kind words around it. Like, the whole point of something is this is slightly pretentious, I'm sure, but I've always viewed us more as like an experimentary lab for all things social and digital, because I think, we have great relationships with a lot of labels and management where sometimes we're like, hey, we're like seeing this problem become a bit of a theme from artist to artist. And I think this might help it. Would you be up for us trying it out? And they just go, yeah, like that's why we hire you guys, because you're always trying new things out. So whether that's building new platforms ourselves, like that's not social media platforms, that'd be crazy, but platforms that are going to make artists' lives easier is one thing we're looking at. Whether it's completely adding whole new processes into what we do, it's that too. I think the number one thing that is a priority for me right now is making the workload for all of this far more sustainable for artists, because I know all the time there is something new being added to an artist to-do list. They started out just making music or whatever it may be, and just more and more and more is being given to them. The one thing I'll say on that is there's always something new. Socials hasn't created a new space there. I'm sure in the 80s when MTV came around and artists were being told, oh, you've got to come up with ideas for a film for your song now. Some of them were like, what the fuck? I don't want to do this. Like this is, I'm a musician. I want to make music. And now there are so many people who would kill to make a music video, So I think there's always something new. But I'm aware that with new platforms all the time, a constant need and churn for social media content, and also something that I'm sure I'll talk about in a little bit as well. The fan account space is only becoming bigger and bigger. More artists want multiple accounts rather than just one account on a platform nowadays. So it's a lot. So whether that's better reporting dashboards that we're trying to build partnerships with a whole bunch of great people out there, whether that's something, I'll give you a bit of a hint here. We're working on something that will allow people to retrieve UGC a little bit easier without it necessarily needing to go up on social. That's a big focus for me right now, which will, in turn get more content from the fans rather than the artists needing to generate it all the time. Or, that fan account approach that I mentioned. I think whatever we can be doing to simultaneously be doing the work for the artists where we can, and also creating noise around the artists, so the artist channels themselves don't always have to be the thing talking about how cool and great they are all the time. I think that those are the big focuses for me right now. And the more specifics as to what that looks like, stay tuned. I think even in the next couple months, we've got some things that I'll be shouting loads about.
Well, you heard it first on Soundbreaker. Something. Check it out in 2 months. Absolutely.
Check in.
Some new features.
Our mailing list. Get it directly in your inbox.
Liam, what if somebody said to you or give you the power and say, hey, you have the power to change one thing right now in the music industry? What would you change?
Oof. I mean, look, there are things here that are obvious. Artists getting paid more. Like I've just said, artists not having to do as much work and focus on doing the music. I think there are so many avenues you could take that with, but if as much as I could try and get the big headliney statement in there, for me personally, if I could change one thing, it would be again, it's maybe one of those obvious ones, but a greater focus on creativity and individuality in the music industry. I think that, and also it goes hand in hand, but an ability to take more risk. I've already mentioned that I think we as a business, when people work with us, they know that. Not saying we're risky, but we do things that maybe no one else is kind of willing to do yet. I've always said, we're jumping in head first while other people are dipping their toe to check the temperature. So it's sometimes that does mean we try something out and 3 months down the line, we go, you know what, that didn't really work in the way we thought it would. But that really comes from an ethos of, I'm not sitting around and waiting for another artist to go and try something out and blow up and then copy them, which I think is what so many people still to this day are trying to do. And I think it is that I really appreciate that if you're working within a label and you take a big risk and it doesn't pay off, you might lose your job. Similarly, if you've only got X amount of budget and you spend a load of budget on something and it doesn't work, that was a waste of money, sure. But what this is breeding is a world where Fred again goes and does something different, and then for 12 months afterwards, everyone's trying to do what Fred again did. Charlie XCX goes and does something different, and for 12 months, everyone's trying to do what Charlie's doing. And it's the reason why this is working for each of these artists is because they're just going, this is me, this is how I want to tell my story, and this is the avenue in which I do it. That might be on a new platform, that might be using a new method or process or whatever, But then as soon as they do that and coin it and it works, everyone copies them. I think, whether you're an artist or whether you're someone at a label, can we all just maybe, go back to just focusing on telling the story, building the world, creating something really interesting first, and then I'm sure all the success will follow after that if you do it really damn well.
Um, you realize a lot of artists right now, they more and more leading towards independence. They don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be signed to a label. Everybody, and what happened? It ignited an increase of management services and companies like yourself, something something, where provide them with all kind of things that they need and stay still independent and control their destiny
Mm-hmm.
and where they're going. And but do you see more and more artists that, whether they're brand new artists or existing artists, say, you know what, I'm going to take the independent route. I'll
Mm-hmm.
just go work with a company like something something and find me a management companies, and I'm done. I don't need to be controlled by a label. I can make my money, make my decision, keep what I make, and just have more control of my journey and my
Mm-hmm.
future.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the answer to that question is yes. I do see it happening more and more. Is that me saying that I think it is the right route for every artist? Definitely not. Um, there's a lot of conversation right now with more management companies. I mean, whether it's ATC or whether it's Red Light or whoever else, like taking more and more marketing services in
Hmm.
house. You're right.
Hmm.
On paper, that can look like greater amount of control for the artist over the label, and maybe that is the case in some artists' case. But I think there is definitely still a place for um, for certain artists to have more of a label forward team. I think there are some great marketing companies out there and marketing executives who are starting their own thing to go and work with independent artists. I mean, a good friend of mine actually even now is an independent A&R, which, back in the day when you get someone adding you on Instagram or LinkedIn and being like, oh, I'm an independent A&R, you'd be like, this guy is a con man. That's even now, becoming more and more of a thing because people are going outside of the label system, but they still want all of those services. So I do think we're going to see more and more of it. I just think that as much as this idea of being your own CEO as an artist and being the CEO of your creative business can sound really shiny, I mean, this might be a little controversial, but I don't think everyone necessarily is the right person or right artist to be taking that route. And, obviously, the number one thing any artist should hear is make sure you have a damn good manager because they're going to be the person who is helping you make those sorts of decisions and they're going to help you manage your business and figure out what is the best route, whether that is
Hmm.
going down more of a traditional label background, whether that's artist services via these many great distributors out there, or whether it's some as independent as you can be nowadays route and building it all yourself. I think there's a real range, but we're going to see more and more of it, of course.
Yes, yes. Do you think that you're dealing a lot with a lot of young, creative, upcoming artists? Do you see that artists are more business savvy right now than in the past? Where say, hey, I just want to make music. Let my lawyer handle this. Let my manager handle this, and not cause chaos financially and a loss of a lot of revenues. Do you think
Mm.
now artists more and more savvy into when it comes to the business,
I'd say so.
aware? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, aware. That's a great word to use. Maybe is the access to information in this age is the
Is
best it's ever be. Whether
yes.
that's just googling things or going on TikTok and you being served all this information, or whether it's all the
Even
ways.
self distribution is available everywhere now.
Or even if it's going into ChatGPT and being like, hey, look over this contract for me, or whatever it may be. Wherever avenue it comes from, the ability to access information is probably easier than ever. So people are ideally, hypothetically, more aware of information. Whether that necessarily makes them more savvy, I'm not sure I would go that far because you still have to have a fundamental understanding of what all this information means. And I also think there's a lot of people out there who provide a lot of dogma. They
Yeah.
tell you this is how you have to break. I mean, I get it in my feed on TikTok all the time, and I'll swipe straight past it most of the time because it's just like someone who has had a mediocre at best industry career themselves
Yeah.
telling you how they broke this artist and so onwards, and it's just like oh, come on, like I think there's a lot of like false prophets out there. And so I just think that, yes, access to information and awareness of information in the
Yeah.
business, the music business is easier than ever, but you've still got to be just as much of a critical thinker. And you've really got to think, again, going back to my earlier answer, you've got to think more individually. Is this the right route for me? Is this the right information for me? I mean, very simply, I still see TikToks being people on TikTok being like, the algorithm changed. This is how you hack the algorithm. This is how many times you have to post a day. And I'm telling you, as someone who does this day after day, there is no one size fits all answer to any of that. So yeah, don't believe everything you see. Otherwise, you're gonna
Don't believe the hype.
Yeah, exactly. Do not believe the hype, as the Arctic Monkeys would say.
Liam, as a creative man, works with creative artists on a daily basis. How do you keep yourself motivated and in tune and up to date? What's all the latest trends, the latest technologies in the music business, and everything else?
Yeah, man. I mean, conversations, number one. I mean, I'm sure I could come through right now and tell you, oh, I have these AI generated trends or whatever. It's not my style personally. It's very much that I am fortunate to have a good network. There are plenty of people in the label space and beyond who I'm fortunate enough to be able to be like, hey, like, can we meet up? I want to bounce some ideas off of you. And they will give me brutally honest responses. That's one of the most powerful things I think I have as a music industry person is I have people who I trust enough and they trust me enough that I can tell them an idea and they are like, you have lost the plot. This is just nowhere near what anyone needs. Sometimes I then do it anyway and prove them wrong. But my point is having a great network and trusted voices around you who you can soundboard ideas off of is the number one way to stay informed as to what's working and what isn't. And also, two-way street there, hearing
Yes.
from them what are their problems. The only other thing, you asked me as well, what keeps me inspired? I mean, fundamentally, looking outside of the music industry, I think that, I mentioned before that we have this real epidemic of people seeing something work for one artist and then copying it for 12 months. I think that the music industry can become a bit of an echo chamber and we're all going like, oh, everyone's doing this, so I have to do this and I have to do that. Go and look at film, go and look at TV, go and look at fashion, go and look at art, both in like those individual formats, but also how are they marketing themselves? I think some of the greatest ideas we've ever had as a business have come from something completely out of music and thinking, oh, this is really cool. How do I interpret this for my
Isn't that some of the greatest ideas? It's funny you said that. That really is true. So true what you're saying. Some of the greatest idea comes out usually from another business. I'm like, what if I implement that in the music business or in that business? Would that work?
Yeah,
and it brings us something. Yes.
I mean, look, not to be too sordid, but some of the biggest learnings I've ever had about how social media can work to amplify came from a coffee that I had with a friend of mine who's a really popular OnlyFans star. And she was telling me all about how she markets herself on social media to drive into her OnlyFans. And it was fascinating, both from a community management perspective and how to turn the algorithms and turn clickbait and things like that on its head from a marketing tool. Obviously, I wouldn't do necessarily everything that she's doing on every artist, but as a fundamental thing to understand how marketing and social can work, I learned a lot from that. And that is definitely pretty far away from our industry,
Liam, any advice for entrepreneurs who is motivated, visionary, creative like yourself? They're going to watch this interview or read about you and say, you know what? I'm going to follow his footstep. I'm going to take the same path. Any advice for somebody who's starting out in the music business, who's inspired and have great ideas and great vision and wants to bring him in? Sometime life or certain obstacles or certain, things in life holds them back from going forward.
Look, no man is an island. No man or woman is an island. I think that you have to have great people around you. I went through. I shouldn't have the career in life I have. I grew up from a background that was very working class, grey, concrete, Birmingham council estate. Had no one in music around me. Single parent home, only child, so onwards. I'm not trying to play the woe is me card, but my point is the fact that I now have such a colourful, vibrant lifestyle. That wasn't the path that I should have gone down. And I think obviously I love the passion and creativity and so onwards was definitely a driving force and a North Star for me to follow the route I took. But
Hmm.
more importantly is I've always surrounded myself with equally inspired and creative people. And that's not me saying sack off your best friends of 15 years. I'm still very good friends with the people I grew up with. But my point is like having people around you who are super aspirational.
It's very
Will
important.
Yeah, it's very important because what is it? Your vibe attracts your tribe, and that typical
Yes.
thing of like you are
Yes.
essentially the median of the 5 people closest to you. So having people around you who are similarly very positive outlook, very much like want to do something different, want to do something great, and they appreciate the power of that community, and you're all helping each other out. That
Keeps you
is very,
motivated.
that is very
Yes.
much it. I mean, look,
And
I've got a
inspired.
tattoo here on my arm of 6 dots. When I moved to London, I think I made 13 and a half grand a year in my internship. I look back now and I'm like, how on earth did I actually survive? Very genuinely, but I somehow was just about getting by. No money from home or anything, by the way, either. And I fell into a community of 6 other young creatives in the music industry. We were all trying to make it. And when one of us ate, I mean, literally, very literally, when I used to DJ, got a high paying DJing gig, I would buy the groceries for us all to have like
Wow.
a nice meal. And similarly, when one of my friends got invited to some cool party at Shoreditch House or whatever, they would get us snuck in through the back door. We all helped each other. And so you look like just be nice to the people around you, and also bear in mind as well, today's assistant is tomorrow's exec, right? So you never know the people that you're talking to, and
Yes.
if you're not so nice of a person, you're going to talk down to them. You can bet damn well that 5-10 years from now, when they're the decision maker, they're not going to be looking on you so favorably. So just be nice to everyone.
Absolutely. Great advice. I guess to look for, I was going to say what's next to look for something, but you already spoke about it earlier. You said a couple of months from now, you guys going to release some interesting features and things that really going to help and empower and be more adding or additional to the music business to make the journey for a lot of these artists much easier and much more brighter.
Yeah, I mean
Yes.
that's it, Bob. You've got it really. We are continuously looking at what the problems are with our industry and even with our own things that we're doing to understand how to fix our own problems. I mean, I've always semi-made the joke, but it's actually kind of true. I operate from a place of anxiety a lot of the time. So as soon as we're doing something and I'm like, damn, this is going really well, everyone really needs it, I'm already like 6 months from now, what is everyone going to start nitpicking that they don't like about this? So I start working on the problem to work for my own thing before anyone else even gets there themselves. So we're continuously building and developing. And yeah, as I said before, there's a couple more literal, hopefully, tools to help people on the horizon for us. So stay tuned on that one. And yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm really excited about that.
Stay tuned for something. Liam, if somebody want to get a hold of you, artists, agencies, labels, what's the best way to get a hold of something or or connect with you as a CEO and co-founder of something?
Yeah, I mean, hello at something.social is the easiest place to get in touch with us. It gets routed to the relevant person. If it's talking about a specific part of what we do, whether that's content, fan accounts, channel management, it will get routed to the right person. But then at the same time, if you go to our website, something.social, you can sign up directly to our mailer, which means that you will get updates on like not only things we're up to, but we do send a free monthly mailer of the best things we've seen in social and in music over that month. So that's a really useful resource. And we similarly have a paid mailer as well that you can get something.social/subscribe. That means you can, I can't remember the exact price at the moment. I think it's something around £20 a month. And that will give you a weekly update of the latest trends and things that people should be doing to continue to bring value to their socials. Any of those places, even if you hit reply to one of those emails you get, that will come direct to us.
Liam, I want to say thank you for being on Soundbreaker here with us. And this will conclude today's episode of Soundbreaker. Please make sure to follow us on socials and stay tuned for our next episode. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share the Soundbreaker podcast. And if you are joining us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.